Senator Coons.
Director Elmendorf, I too am deeply concerned about what's reflected in your chart, that while short-term unemployment has come back down, long-term unemployment remains very high and is persistent, and worryingly so, both in terms of the human costs and the long-term costs for our economy. You've testified before that not all cuts are the same, and that there are some ways in which we are cutting that are hurting our long-term competitiveness, that short-term cuts in things like education or infrastructure or research and development produce longer-term reductions in our capacity, and that we should be prioritizing things that will accelerate growth, that we should not be simply trying to get through this difficult fiscal time in a way that focuses on austerity, that we should also be investing in a way that sustains growth. What types of policies, in your view, could both help accelerate growth and do so in a way that would deal with long-term unemployment? And what do you think are the impacts of sequestration on long-term unemployment? What are the budgetary implications of persistently high long-term unemployment?
So in the first part of your question, Senator, of all non-defense discretionary spending, about half represents investment of some sort. About 20% of non-defense discretionary spending is investment in physical capital, such as highways. Another 15% goes for education and training, and about 10% goes for R&D, such as health research. Overall, we think those investments help to build a stronger economy in the future, and cutbacks in those investments would reduce output and income in the future. But I think it's also important to say that different pieces of those elements of spending may be much more or much less effective than others in terms of their long-term growth. And we've done some work in this area, but it's very difficult to draw broad conclusions. And I would note from a study we wrote a few years ago, we said that this was about research, and we wrote federal spending in support of basic research has on average had a significantly positive return. We also noted that gross generalization is difficult to apply as guidance for decisions across budget functions, agencies' budgets, and appropriation subcommittee jurisdictions. So there are some broad lessons, I think, and then there is some evidence that we and others have generated for particular sorts of federal investments, but it's nothing like a comprehensive evaluation of where in that large non-defense pool the money should be devoted. On the question of long-term unemployment, this is very damaging, obviously for the people involved, many of whom have very little source of support for an extended period of time. Whatever savings people may have to get through a short unemployment spell is much more likely to be exhausted if one is unemployed for half a year or longer. But it also has, beyond the personal effects, important economic effects over time. Some people who are unemployed for a long time simply give up looking for work. Some people probably find their way into disability insurance. The applications for the disability part of the Social Security program have gone up quite rapidly over the past few years. And people who go into that program very rarely come back out of it into the labor force. And even people who keep looking for work have skills that are depreciating over time. Technical skills, but also connections to the workforce, connections to people who are working. So it poses a very large risk of there being some set of people who will not find their way back to work at all, or will not find their way back to the productive sort of work that they were in before they lost their jobs.
Are there investments in skills training and in the manufacturing sector in particular that strike you because of that combination of factors as having the highest potential for contributing to our competitiveness and getting people back to work who have been unemployed for long periods of time?
I don't have a simple answer to that. In this report that I mentioned to Senator Baldwin, we reviewed the evidence on a large number of different ways of trying to help people get back into the labor force. And as I said, I think the general lesson is that a number of those programs have been successful on a small scale, but have not been tried on a large scale. Others have not even been quite so successful on a small scale. It's a hard thing to do, and I don't want to discourage people from doing it. But I don't have a short, crisp answer, but we would be happy, as I said, to sit down with you and talk about the elements in that report and help you construct policy in that area if you'd like.